everyone, back from the Tiny Human Handbook. Today we are talking about babysitters. I'm a former babysitter. I've got years of experience. The purpose of my channel is to help new moms feel confident in decisions they're making, feel successful, and feel proud of themselves when making decisions for their family. And one of the most important decisions you can make is who to leave your little one with for the first time and how to prepare for that as well. The purpose of this video today is to help new moms navigate the process of finding their first babysitter and to give a babysitter's perspective on the process. I've been a babysitter for years, kids as young as 3 months old up until preteen years. Multiple kids at a time or just one little baby, twins even. I've got tons of experience with babysitting. I've studied early childhood development and education. I've worked at numerous places watching little ones, daycare centers, babysitting situations, nannying, you name it. And I'm gonna outline the important steps of the process for new moms who may need to leave their little one with somebody new. You can even use the tips in this video for leaving your little one with family as well. And this is super important because we are going to be talking about safety, your child's safety, as well as their well-being and comfort, as well as yours. You want to feel confident and secure when leaving your little one for the first time, especially because they're going to feed off of that energy. You want to feel confident and proud to be leaving them with somebody that you've chosen. So we'll start off with some common fears and concerns that parents have when leaving their little one for the first time. One common concern, of course, is where do you find a babysitter? How do you know that they are any good, or how do you know that they're going to be watching after your child the way that you desire? So you've got trust. You've also got the child's comfort level. How are they going to feel when you are stepping out and throughout the time that they're with the babysitter? Is the babysitter going to be paying attention to your little one? Are they going to know that that's the #1 priority and reason they're there? As well as safety. So what does this babysitter know about child safety? Do they know common choking hazards and dangerous things around the house? No matter what, the search process is overwhelming, including where to look and who to ask. In my experience, my favorite time to babysit is when a new mom hasn't ever had a babysitter before. I love being the first person that they're entrusting their kids with to watch them while they're away for something. My first suggestion, of course, is to start the search early and start the preparation process. So maybe you don't even have a planned event or an idea in your mind of when you would be needing a babysitter. I would still recommend going through and watching this video and preparing some of the things ahead of time. Preparing ahead of time is going to help you feel secure. When my son was younger, I hadn't left him with a babysitter before. I still prepared a document where I've got all of the emergency numbers, house rules, and things that I'll go over later on in this video, even though I didn't have a plan to leave him with anybody yet. Where do you find a babysitter? That is probably my favorite tip. This is one way that people found me as a babysitter. When I was working at a daycare center or child's education, I was entertaining kids in camp or at fitness programs, working with kids as young as 3 months old up to 12 years old. Parents of children in my class would get my number and ask about babysitting. So that's my #1 recommendation for you. If you are able to sign up for a children's activity, I would choose one that's pretty large, so you might be interacting with a variety of teachers, so you can see how a variety of people will be interacting with your little one. So things like swim lessons, gymnastics classes, dance classes, those are great places to find people who love working with kids and have experience with it as well. Bonus too is these people are often CPR certified, first aid certified for children as well. Look at the daycare center or anywhere where people are working with kids for a great, easy way to find a babysitter. And talk to them in private too. You don't want to talk to them in front of the whole class about babysitting. Maybe pull them aside after class if your child has an extra special connection with them. Mention the idea of babysitting, see if that's something that they're open to, because that way you'll know that you're working with somebody who already has a great relationship with your child. Your child will be comfortable with, hopefully more comfortable with than a stranger, and you'll be more comfortable leaving your child with them than a stranger too. Another common problem for moms looking for babysitters is typically you can rely on word of mouth for a lot of things, like recommendations on a great car seat, baby gear, or classes for your little one. But with a babysitter, I know a lot of moms might gatekeep. The reason being, they found a really good thing and they want that resource to be available for them whenever they need. But of course, that makes it a hard way to find a babysitter when you might think that it's an easy thing to just ask other moms in moms groups if they know somebody good. They may be giving you their second best option. You also have nanny services or companies that provide babysitters or nannies. Going through something like that, it may cost a little bit more, but that way you are likely looking at a company with training and a certain standard that they're setting for their babysitters. And I didn't mention earlier, but I also have a background in human resources and interviewing. Let's dive into some interview questions and things to ask a babysitter before working with them for the first time. My number one recommendation is to check references. It is no problem at all to ask an interviewee in any situation for 1, 2, 3 references. Of course, state that you don't want family references, but people outside of your family. Maybe if they have experience babysitting before, you can get in touch and hopefully they'll give a good reference for babysitting. It doesn't really hurt to do it as long as it is no problem at all to send an email, a text, get on a phone call and get either a good or not so good recommendation. It's better to know ahead of time. Another recommendation would be to stay away from hypothetical questions. It may be your instinct, or you may have heard, to ask questions like, what would you do if my child was breaking a rule? Or what would you do if there was a fire or emergency situation? Instead, you're going to ask what they have done in the past. So you'll ask, in your previous experience, give me an example of a time when you facilitated sharing with a child, or when you comforted a child whose mom had left and it made them upset. So you want to think about what's important to you to ask about and then phrase it in a way where they're giving you an example from their past. And the reason you're doing this is because you'll be able to tell from their answer if they have done it before or if they haven't. You can tell if they have experience by the way they answer this question. If they can give you a story and it's specific, it's likely that they've had experience in this area. If they are answering the question with hypotheticals or a really general answer, it's likely that they haven't had experience practicing that skill before. Whereas a hypothetical situation, you're just getting what they would do and likely getting the answer that they think you want to hear. And babysitters also want to know about your parenting style as well. Prior to them babysitting, tell them about your approach to discipline. Do you do timeouts? How long? Where? What do you do in terms of discipline for your little one? What do you want the babysitter to do? You're gonna want to spell this out. You can give some examples, have it written down as well. So if the babysitter wants to reference back, or maybe they're working with a few different families, they'll be able to understand what you're looking for in a babysitter, and it helps them to know what the child is used to. You'll also want to check their CPR and first aid certification, see the certificate, verify that it is legitimate, and also look at the source. There are differences, of course, between online CPR certification programs and in-person CPR certification programs. If that's important to you, that your babysitter has done one in person and had hands-on experience learning that material, make sure that that's one of their credentials. Another recommendation of mine is to start off with a trial run of babysitting. If you have the time and availability, invite the babysitter over to do a quick babysitting trial session where you're only leaving for a short period of time. Ideally, when it's a good time for your child, a lot of kids do better with changes or transitions when they're not hungry and tired, so doing it earlier in the day is a better way to have a good first experience with that. It'll get your comfort level up, the babysitter's and your child's comfort level with the situation. It may be one scenario where you invite the babysitter over to give them a tour of the house, show them some of the house rules, get them connected to your Wi-Fi, which is a must if you're having the babysitter over during nap time or bedtime. Make sure that they've got something to entertain themselves with. Show them how the TV works, turn it off, turn it on, let them know if it's okay for the child to watch TV or not, and show them around. Show them if the door locks behind you, if they stepped outside to play with your little one in the backyard. Make sure they know emergency routes and your family's emergency plan. What I don't suggest is doing a trial run while you are also there and present. What in my experience does not work work well is to have the babysitter over to entertain and play with the child while you do something around the house. In this situation, the child always knows that mom or dad is available, but not with them. So it is confusing for the little one. Give your babysitter a hard time. Well, the baby's gonna give your babysitter a hard time because they know you're there. They're unfamiliar with the situation and they might keep hearing you and can't really adapt to what's going on. Either do short trial or just invite them over, stay with them the whole time, introduce your little one to them, explain what's going to happen in the future. Even if your little one is really young, it doesn't hurt to explain in words with what's going on. They understand more than they can communicate back with you. So even if your little one's not talking yet, maybe they are still understanding some of what you're saying. And that brings me to clear communication for the babysitter. I always find it helpful when a mom tells me as a babysitter if they want photos or summary or updates throughout the time that I'm babysitting. That's one of the conversations that I initiate. So you're gonna wanna lay out what you expect in terms of communication. Say, oh, I want updates throughout the night, or I want a couple of photos of you guys, you know, just to see what's going on. If you don't want communication or text throughout the night, that's okay too. Either way, you're gonna wanna explain that number one priority throughout this experience is your child and their safety and well-being. So you're calling or texting or need to get in touch, let them know that you first expect that they'll tend to the child before coming to the phone. I also recommend making a document either on your phone or on the computer about a couple of important things that are best to have written down ahead of time. On my phone, on my Google Docs, I have a document that I can quickly share or print out for a babysitter who's coming by. The first section in the document is going to be emergency contacts. So my number, my name, my husband's name and number, baby's grandmother, grandfather, local friends nearby, the poison control number, all of that right front and top. Oh, as well as the pediatrician. But likely they're not going to need to call the pediatrician or call the baby's grandma, but in case they do, good to have it on hand. Next, I outline some of the house rules, and the first rule is watching the baby is number one. I say never walk away from the baby, especially during a diaper change or if they're on a elevated surface or even crawling or running around the house. Of course, it is a baby-proofed space, but even baby-proofing is not completely baby-proof 100%. So there's going to be things that I know as a mom to watch out for, and if I know that he's in the vicinity of somewhere where he could reach a power cord or something like that, I know and I'm aware a babysitter is going to be less familiar with the baby's tendencies and what they gravitate towards. Outlining there that the baby is number one focus and point of attention. That's the first rule. That is the most important. Having that written down is going to even emphasize the importance of it. And number two is no baths, no pool time, no water play. So that's one of the most dangerous situations in a house is bath time. So if the baby is a mess, my rules outline go for the baby wipes or the washcloth. Rule number three is food, any allergies your baby has to different foods, as well as where they are in terms of eating solids. Maybe your baby is young for solids and you're going to use this section to outline bottles, how to warm a bottle if you want them to do that, how much to put in a bottle, how frequently, how to prepare it, all of the specifics, outline it right there. For Cullen, he's at the stage of eating solids, so I outlined that he's gonna need any food cut into bite-sized pieces, and we outlined the common choking hazards, popcorn, raw celery, anything shaped like a grape or a hot dog. Make sure you include that there, as well as your expectations on the baby finishing the food, especially bottles. For example, when Cullen was still having bottles when he was younger, I wrote that he might have 3 to 6 ounces, and it was perfectly okay if he doesn't finish the bottle. Outline safe sleep and where your baby sleeps. Is there a specific pack and play that you want to use? The crib, what items are allowed or not allowed in the crib, no adult beds. Put that all in this section on sleep. You're gonna wanna also outline what he wears for sleep, whether he's old enough to use a blanket, a sleep sack, does he change into pajamas, outline that there in that section too. Another house rule is no hot drinks around the baby. Personally, I like iced coffee any time of year, but I know that's just me, so making sure that babysitters know hot drinks stay away from the baby. They also need to be away from the edge of the table if your baby is reaching that high. So I would say no hot drinks during babysitting just to avoid any safety concerns. The next section is about furniture. So you know what furniture is secured and what furniture is stable enough to hold the baby if he pulls up on it. And you know your baby best too. Outline if there's any furniture that may tip over if the baby's pulling up on it. One thing that my son does, and he's at that age where he's perfecting that pincher grasp. So I outlined for the babysitter, watch out for him putting little things in his mouth. So that's the one thing I constantly am watching for. Whenever he's in the kitchen, he's grabbing something small off the ground and putting it in his mouth. It could be a leaf, it could be food. It doesn't matter, he's gonna eat it. It could be a bug, it doesn't matter. If he can pick it up, he can eat it. And the best thing is my reflexes are faster and I am very quick. So I can get in there as soon as he's realized he was able to pick something up, I can take it away. But I put that down in our babysitting document just so they'd be aware as well. The last one is expectations on leaving the house. I've outlined in the babysitting document that 1, the babysitter never leaves the house if the baby is still in the house. 2, to stay in the house with the baby. And you can specify if being in a backyard is okay or on a porch, or if you want them to stay in the house, make sure to outline it so nobody gets any ideas about going to the park or taking a walk to the store. You're gonna wanna specify your expectations before. I've had a lot of kids that I've babysat in the past ask about going out to the store and wanna go to Target. They wanna go out to the grocery store or to the playground, and they don't always understand that when a babysitter's there, it's best to stay home with the house, especially because they probably don't have keys. That's the babysitting document. Also, if you've printed it out, maybe the day of, also write down on there where you are, the address and number of that place too, you know, because maybe your phone dies or something, they can't get in touch with you. But also let them know, has your child already had a lot to eat that day? Have they barely had anything? How much sleep have they gotten? Just if it's below or above average is good enough. When I went out to babysit, I always appreciated if the mom said, okay, they haven't had much for lunch, so they're probably gonna get a bit hungry this evening or this afternoon. Or maybe they'll say, well, they were eating all day, so I really don't expect them to have much for dinner, but if they want to, that's fine too. Another important tip is to trust your instincts. If you're interviewing a babysitter and something just doesn't feel right, it is okay to move along to find somebody else. Oh, and it's always best to tell the babysitter ahead of time about any pets in the house, as well as if the child is not feeling well or if they've had any illnesses. Babysitters don't like to show up and find out they are watching a sick child. So always best to prepare them ahead of time. Another tip is to create a goodbye routine for your little one. Do not sneak out of the house without saying goodbye. I find it is best to explain to the child where you're going and that you will be back, and let them know we'll be back whenever you plan to be back. Make up a little goodbye handshake or a goodbye signal. Keep the routine short and sweet, but make sure you have a little routine to say goodbye before leaving. Don't keep saying goodbye either. Don't hear them cry and come back in and then leave and then come back. I find as a babysitter that is the hardest experience. The child doesn't have a clear cutoff point that you will be going, and they'll keep trying to see if you're gonna come back again and again. So hopefully these tips help you build some trust with a future babysitter. Hopefully we've helped you find where to find one, what rules to set up, and how to create a little document to keep in place and keep it updated for whenever you need a sitter in the future. Remember, always trust your instincts, rely on your own values. Keep those in mind while you're doing your babysitter interviews and selecting candidates. Of course, it's completely normal and very common to feel anxious about this situation. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll feel with it, and as well, I find the more you prepare and plan ahead will also help you as well. But hopefully this video has helped you. Leave a comment below if you have any additional tips or things to consider when finding a babysitter for your little one. Like my video if it was helpful for you, share it with another new mom, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.